Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. The topic, email etiquette, has become a big problem with business people today because most of you probably are accustomed to texting on a regular basis. But in the business world, texting isn't as accepted as it is with all of you on a day-to-day basis. The primary reason is that email has a trail and a history. And as a CPA and in the business world, people, your business, your employers, your coworkers want to read that, want to see what you're saying, who you're saying it to, when did you say it, and they want to look back for years. So email hasn't really been replaced yet by anything. But again, I would say that most of you, maybe a sign of hands, text more often than you email. My children never email. So most of you do text. But when you come into the business environment, they don't want you to text. They want to have control over what you're texting, how you're texting it, and being very professional about what you say. So the tool or fool is basically, is email a tool, or will you look like a fool when you're corresponding? Email is a tool. That's what we forget. Calculators are a tool, computers are tools, email is a tool, and you have to know how to use it. You're going to customize your use of email based on the software that you use. You're going to customize it based on the types of businesses that you work with. It's going to help you correspond in your career, your business, and it's going to help you with your reputation. How you present yourself in an email is very important. The right tools, but the wrong execution gets you nowhere. So you have the right tools, you have email, and you just want to basically expand on how you work with them. Take it serious. Email is very important because it's the first place that you generally correspond with somebody. So remember, how you look in that email is almost like me walking up to one of you and shaking your hands and introducing you for the first time to who I am. Well, I can't do that because I'm on the other side of the room, I'm on the other side of the office, I'm on the other side of the state, I'm in another country. So how that email comes across is how you're going to look immediately on that first email, that first sign. We tend to get casual with people we know, but when you're first corresponding with an email, you don't know who's reading the email. You don't know who is going to look at you. You don't know what their response is going to be. They don't know what you sound like. You can hear my voice. You can hear my tone. You can hear when my voice cracks. You can hear when I laugh. Email doesn't give you any of that. But the person on the other side is interpreting how you sound by your email. In the firm that I work for, we correspond mainly with our clients on a day-to-day basis. Hundreds, several hundreds, sometimes thousands of emails. During tax season, we're an accounting firm. During tax season, we get thousands of emails to manage in and out. When you send me an email, am I the one reading that email? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's going to somebody else. So you have to be aware of who you're communicating with. If I'm communicating with a government agency, I'm going to have a different voice, a different tone than a lawyer, than a prospective client, a client in distress, a client who owes a lot of taxes, a client who's losing their home. Your email, the correspondence related to that topic is very important. And you have to come across the way you would want to sound as if you were sitting next to that person. We email with individuals and we email with businesses. So our firm has created an always rule. 2 years ago when we did a conversation on email etiquette, it was a never list. Now it's an always list. Always because it had a little bit more of a positive feeling to it, but we always take our business communication seriously. We always want to be responsive. Now today's email from 2 years ago, 10 years ago, it's changed. The environment of email constantly develops and changes. More and more people in business are communicating via email. More and more people are not picking up the phone. More and more people don't have time. So they're busier, they have busier schedules. So the always be responsive, it may be that you're just going to send out a reply to somebody saying, I received your email and I will get back to you. That may be enough for now, but letting them know that you received their email is very important. You may not be able to resolve their problems. You may not be able to communicate with them right away. Don't respond in an email while you're in a car, but you will be responsive in some way. And a responsive tone is just, I received your email. That is good enough. It's very hard to know who receives emails and who doesn't. Let's say something, God forbid, happens to me right here, and I grab my chest, and I wind up on the floor. Is the first thing you're going to do is email the hospital? Email the ambulance? Email my wife? Probably not. Because it's important. I hope you think it's important. It's important to communicate immediately. So we still pick up the phone for things that are important. We still run out the door and call for help when things are important. Think about email in that regard. When it's important, email's probably not the first solution to communicating, when it's really important. Be professional. Always remember who you're communicating with. You're not communicating with maybe a relative, a friend, a spouse, and clean your email. That was a new one because emails become our email boxes become more and more inundated. So managing your email so that you can communicate more effectively has become much more important today. So our philosophy, going back to the hospital ambulance route, face-to-face contact is our preference for communicating. It's not easy, people are far away, and people are very busy. But when it's important, face-to-face communication is our preference. Our next preference is picking up a phone, because a phone is instant responsiveness. I ask a question, you answer it. You ask me back, you expand on it. Conversations like this can happen ongoing. Email is generally not the place for a conversation. Email is generally the place for one question, one answer. One, I'm going to take care of this, don't worry about it. No answer. But a communication back and forth, a conversation that needs to take place, it can take place when you're texting because it's pretty instantaneous, you're texting. But email is not like that, because the boxes are going in and out, people are working on something else, you don't know where they're sitting, you don't know what they're doing. They may not be able to be responsive right away. So if you have to expand on a conversation, choose one or two. So email as a tool, you're not texting, we're not tweeting, and we're not instant messaging. So the abbreviations have to go away. You've got to get rid of RU as letters. Our spelling is terrible today because of, the computer's going to fix our spelling. But try not to abbreviate in the professional environment. And certainly don't sign off with "see ya." Greetings are vital. This goes back to the first email that you send. The first email that you send is a handshake with somebody. So you want to have a firm handshake. You don't want it to look like this. Excuse me. Greetings set the stage for our signatures. So the greeting is to who it's to, who it's from. We were discussing this a few minutes ago. The subject line, is one of the most important tools in our email to organize it, to search for it later, to be able to categorize everything. Being blank is not the way to communicate in a professional environment. Replying and winding up with a if any of you have ever seen that email, that's not going to help people communicate later. It's not going to help them locate your email. It's not going to help them prioritize your email. It's not going to help them communicate with you. And then the sign-off, again, very vague. John. This is more of how the greeting should work. Hi to the client, to the customer, to the person is fine. It's a little casual, so this is probably not a first-time communication. but it's basically saying greetings. Your to box, Julie Smith in this case, it can be used as your greeting, but we prefer to personalize it. Again, it opens up the door to the communication. It's better to have a dear, as if you were writing a letter for the first time. If you don't know how they refer to themselves, you will do with Dear Mrs. Smith. You won't call people by their first names because you don't know how they'll accept it. If they sign off from Julie or Love Julie, then you'll have a casual breakdown and the communication will be on friendlier terms. In this case, hi Julie, we're going to clean up that fish. Sincerely, John Waters, CEO. So you're basically saying who you are. That's important. Your role in the company and your title can be a very important thing in the email. And this may be the first time that you're introducing yourself in that role. Confidential emails. Nothing is confidential in an email. Don't assume that it is. You could write confidential, you could mark it up confidential, but you have to assume that email can go a number of places, and you have no control over it. Similar to your tweets and your other communication. It gets out there. So there's really nothing confidential, but if you want to mark it confidential, more people will most likely read it because they'll be more interested in what is so confidential that it came in that way. So just be sensitive that you can say it's confidential, but it may not be to the people who receive it. So just treat that a little bit more cautiously. You can mark your subject line as confidential, which most people do. You can direct it to people. You could say in the email who you want to read that email, but remember, once you hit send, it's gone. It's out of your control. If something's confidential, that face-to-face meeting might be the better way to go. Get to the point fast. Unlike my speaking here, talking about email etiquette, you're going to get to the point much quicker. Your email should not take a lot of time to read. People are busy. You want people to read it. You want to convey to them the urgency. Get to the point very quickly. If it's just a matter of saying, I wanted to discuss X subject, that's fine. That tells them what you want to do, and then you can follow up with a call or a meeting or a communication via email. But if it's important, keep it very brief. I hope most of you are in the business school and you're studying business classes, so I'm sure you know that caps lock is yelling. Right? You do know that. When you put the caps lock on your email, you're talking very loud. We use caps lock for forms, but we have to remember to take them off for email. In our office, we use for tax returns, everything's in caps lock. But when you move over to your email, you need to remove that. It softens the tone. Unless, of course, you really do want to yell. If you want to yell, if you want to get your point across, exclamation points all over the place are wonderful ways to communicate if you're really angry. But on a day-to-day basis, with your clients, with the government agencies, with your professors, small caps. Acronyms. Acronyms are those abbreviations that we use. They're not good for email because they can be misinterpreted. Somebody has STD, they could have short-term disability. In the accounting world, we have clients who have STD. We don't refer to that in an email. Save the date. We're going to have this lecture today. I'm going to put out a flyer that's in an email that says STD. It's going to raise a lot of attention, but STD means a lot of different things to a lot of people. So you may not want to use abbreviations and acronyms. The building that you see up there, STD, is Springfield Trading Depot. I'm sure it gets a lot of attention and gets a lot of jokes, but the abbreviations don't work. Your distribution list, who you're emailing to. Be very careful about who you're emailing to. In this case, an email was sent and it included a person by the name of Howie Plank. The email goes on to discuss how we're going to replace Howie Plank, how he is going to be terminated from his job, but he's indispensable and he's responsible for a couple of projects, so let's not tell Howie Plank. Well, you have to be very careful. Once you hit send, that's out there. So go slow, read your distribution list, know who's on the distribution list, and don't hit reply all unless you actually mean all the people who are on that email and on that chain to get it. So watch your distribution list. When I'm emailing people in my office, there's usually a to, right? We have to who the main concern is. And then we have copy, and then we have blind copy. Blind copy is, I don't want anyone else to know that I'm sending this to you. So there could be information that's sensitive. It could be, I'm just putting it in your inbox so that you're aware this conversation is taking place, but I'm not going to tell anybody. I don't use blind copy too often, especially with my own staff in my own office, because they should know everything that's going on. But the to box and the copy are very important. The to box is the person who it's meant for. That's the person who's going to take action. That's the person who you want to respond to your email. You could have a to all these people, but if you do that, all those people should respond. If I'm just looking to have one person respond, I will drop everybody after Frank Jones to a copy. I'm copying you, but I'm not expecting you to do anything with it. I'm not expecting a response. How you work with twos and copies depends on the environment that you work in. Some offices say send to everybody. Others say just copy me when you want me included, but I'm not going to take an action. That's how we treat it in my office. If you copy me, I'm reading it, but I'm not replying to it. And your email, how you work with your email, you're going to customize around your environment, around your schedules, around what you're used to doing. You're going to organize it in a way that's going to work best for you. There was somebody who organized their email, and under their inbox, they had inbox 1 through 31. Each box was organized for a day of the month. So everything that they had to read or do was dropped into this inbox. I've never seen that before, but it was very interesting to see how different people organize their inbox, and how they organize their emails, and how they sort by subject. This person was most efficient by knowing that, okay, tomorrow's the 26th. 26th? I think so. Tomorrow's the 26th. I'm going to look at my 26th, and that's everything I have to do tomorrow with my emails. Anything that comes in tomorrow, I'm going to throw into the 27th, the 28th, the 29th. And they were very happy with that. Keep it simple, including your organization. The email on the left, nobody could understand. It's long-winded. It has a lot of complicated formulas. It's too complex. Nobody's going to respond to that. So keep it brief, keep it simple. Make sure that you proofread your own emails before you send them. It's always advisable. Once you hit send, it's gone. There is a recall button. You can recall an email, but it doesn't say anything other than, I didn't mean to send this to you. So it doesn't help a lot. The respond we talked about. You're going to respond pretty quickly to an email that comes in one way or another. You're going to resolve or you won't resolve, and you'll tell people when you're going to resolve it. Organizing your email. Organizing your email that's best for how you work. If you're an accountant like we are, we might organize our inboxes by tax matters versus accounting matters versus staff matters. And then clean. Cleaning is basically cleaning your inbox on a regular basis. It gets harder and harder to do. More and more people are complaining about how their inbox is inundated. It's very important that you shut off your email for a certain period of time. You're all young and you can do many things at one time. A lot of us can't. I can do one thing at one time. So I have to even shut off my inbox so that I'm not seeing different pop-ups during the day and distracting me against what I'm doing. So organizing and cleaning your inbox is very important. And trying to set aside time to do it is very important. When you start in different corporations, they'll have rules about how long you can keep your email, when it gets archived. Remember, a lot of people can read your emails. People can read your emails in a business environment. People can read your emails as you send them. There's nothing really private about it. So be very careful about what you say and how you say it. A lot of people over the years have gotten in trouble for saying and doing the wrong thing just through an email, or just being misinterpreted. Let's call it just, you didn't understand what I said. Well, again, tone doesn't come across in an email. Sarcasm and jokes don't come across in an email. So be careful. Sarcasm can get you into trouble. Sarcasm can look like a stated fact, when you really meant to say, of course I would never do that. So a sense of humor is like a fingerprint. They're all different. What you think is funny, I may not think is funny. I'm sure what I think is funny, you probably wouldn't think is very funny either, so unless you're into tax humor. So what is funny to somebody else may not be funny to yourself, it may not be funny to your employer, it may not be funny to your professor. So again, proofread it. Often I might find myself writing an email and I can't hear the tone of my voice in my email. I hear my voice all the time. You've never heard my voice before. So often when I'm writing an email and I'm not really too sure of who's receiving it on the other end, I will have one or two other people read my email. Tell me how this sounds to you. It's an excellent way to send an email and correspondence when you're really not too sure how you sound. Because our voices don't come across in an email. I've had clients I've never met and I've never spoken to, and I've only corresponded them with via email. They're on the other side of the world, and we just go back and forth in an email. I have to be very careful about how I sound. I also have to be very careful how I sound culturally. What certain cultures sound like and how we represent ourselves is all different. We may not sound the same in another culture, in another country, in another environment, to other people. So having somebody else reread your email might be a good way to do business, especially for the first time you're sending it. Who's the recipient? Who's reading your email? On the other end of your email, on the other end of the world, there's a person there who's reading your email. Try to envision what it would be like to send an email to a stranger and how they're going to hear your voice. How are they going to interpret? What can I say that softens what I'm saying? How do I start out with a friendlier tone? If it's a very serious topic, maybe I need to state that this is a very serious matter and I prefer to communicate with you over the phone. But however you present yourself, remember there's another person on the other side who's reading that. And sometimes the person who you think is reading it is not the person who's reading it, because some people have administrators who read their emails. Some people have personal assistants who read their emails. So you may be very comfortable emailing this one person, but he or she may have a secretary or an assistant who's sorting through emails and filtering through them, or just copied on every single email. Every single email that comes into a CEO of a company could be going to 2 or 3 other people to help them manage those emails more efficiently. Spell check. Check it once, check it twice, check it 3 times. If you spell words incorrectly, which I'm sure you do when you're texting, and sometimes it fixes it, and sometimes it fixes it incorrectly, but if you are sending an email and you're going to spell incorrectly, people are going to make assumptions. Maybe you didn't mean to misspell it. People nowadays email from their mobile phones, their iPhones, and at the end of the email, it generally says, please excuse any typos, I'm all thumbs, or whatever it is, because we're writing from these very small devices. That's okay. You can put a disclaimer that says, anything I wrote incorrectly here, or anything I misspelled is not my fault. And that can work okay. But you have to know who you're talking to. And the first email that you send to somebody, you probably want to make sure that it's spelled correctly. Otherwise, you'll wind up like the Nationals did on opening day with the wrong uniform spelling. So back to our proofreading. Proofread, read through it a couple of times. If you're not a good speller and you don't have a good spell check on, have somebody else proofread. There's nothing else wrong with it. I don't know if you caught that. Bad spellers of the world untie, not unite. And before you hit send, take your time. Take that 1 extra second to reread your email. We move very quickly in the business world, in school, what you're doing on a daily basis. We act and we react instantaneous because of information, because of phones, because of mobile phones, because of cell phones. We move so fast. Take a deep breath before you hit send. There's nothing wrong with that. And nobody is going to get upset for you taking a few seconds more to make sure that that email is written properly. So, this is a recap of basically a few things to avoid. What I found over the last 2 years, 3 years with email is more and more people are communicating more and more through email. Maybe we just don't want to talk to each other. Maybe it is an efficient way to do business because you can send an email to somebody at 9 p.m. and you might get a response back the next day. But as we progress into this world where people's inboxes are getting fuller and fuller, there's going to be a level of manners and etiquette that's going to change the way we email. Because if you send me an email and I don't respond, it doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. It probably means I didn't see it, or I'm inundated and I can't respond, or it got blocked in my junk box because I've never received an email from you. So don't be overly sensitive by the lack of response. But remember, going back to the beginning of this conversation, if it's important to you, if it's really, truly important to you, email works. But if it's really important and you've got to dial 911, pick up a phone, because you're not going to do it via email. And there's nothing wrong with calling somebody up and saying, I sent you an email. When you get a chance, take a look at it, follow it up with a call. I think what will happen over the next few years or months, or the way technology works is days, is that people will accept fewer responses or slower responses via email just because the communication is growing and growing. And you're going to have to get into your own pattern and into your own style of response. What I tell my clients is, you can send me an email, but I have about a 48-hour turnaround time. Because I'm physically here with you, talking to you, emails are still coming through. The questions are still coming through. So I tell my clients I have a 48 turnaround time. A lot of them don't like that. Most people in business want instant responses. They're sitting at their desk right now dealing with an issue or a project, and they want to get it done. Well, I say if it's really important, then you'll pick up the phone and we'll schedule a time. So as you go through and you start doing email and getting away from your texting, which is going to be less and less accepted as a business tool, because, and if you want to invent something, great. I mean, invent the ability for text to wind up in an email into my inbox so that every text that I send from my phone, I have a history in my archive, because that's what people need, because texting is becoming so much more predominant as well. And we're communicating more and more via texting. But texting is not the professional preference tool. It's not the tool that's going to be used in business right now. So as you start to migrate to those emails they'll feel like it's really slow compared to texting. It's like what mail is to me. Sending a letter, 3-day turnaround time, that's email to the texter. So just keep that in mind, that as you go through and you start to migrate to more and more emails, just try to go slow and remember that what could be misunderstood will be. Any questions?